CGTN is utilizing media convergence to carry out its mission. The strategy calls for using television as the driving force to power and expand mobile and digital presence. Its Media Convergence Center combines multi-format news gathering and multi-platform resource sharing, as well as multiple channel and distribution outlets. CGTN is also making strides and broadening its reach through advancements in social media, video streaming, live programming, and mobile access.
You're watching the link.
CGTN boasts an extensive global reporting team with correspondents throughout China and around the world. With its official model of See the Difference, CGTN is committed to reporting global news from a Chinese perspective and telling China's stories for a global audience. CGTN, See the Difference.
VMF 2017. Welcome. This event will be broadcast live on CGTN app, as well as on different social media platforms, on News CCTV, as well as on CNTV, just for your information. You may have noticed from the very beginning a degree of excitement in my voice, and certainly in the color that I chose for today. This is a big day. This is the first ever global media summit of CGTN and coincides with VMF 2017. And the good news for all of you, from today on, this is going to be one of the most important annual events of this media group, and certainly a platform of idea exchanges for all of you coming from different parts of the world. So, on behalf of our organizers today, my special thank you. Let me especially express our appreciation to the distinguished guests. My great honor to introduce Mr. Jiang Heping, Controller of CGTN, 中央电视台新闻中心副主任，中国国际电视台外语频道总监江和平先生，谢谢您的到来。Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Wang Wenbin, Director of Research and Development Center of CCTV, 中央电视台发展研究中心主任王文斌先生，谢谢您。Mr. Li Yi, Deputy Director of CCTV News Center, 中央电视台新闻中心副主任李毅先生，谢谢您。Miss Yan Mi, who is the Director of Asia, Africa, Asia Pacific Division of the International Department of State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, Film, and Television. Good to see you. 国家新闻出版广电总局国际合作司亚非拉处处长叶妮。Mr. Teng Yunping, who is the General Manager of CGTN Corp. And also President of CCTV Plus. 中国环球广播电视有限公司总裁、央视国际视频通讯有限公司董事长滕云平先生，谢谢您。向大家同样热烈介绍 Mr. 胡邦胜 Deputy Director General of China Radio International 中国国际广播电台副台长胡邦胜先生 Mr. Xu Yingpu Deputy Editor-in-Chief of China Daily 中国日报副总编许迎甫先生，谢谢。Mr. Lu Ningsi, Director of News and Editor-in-Chief of Phoenix Info News Channel. 凤凰资讯台总编辑吕宁思先生，谢谢您。Mr. Brian Carovillano, I hope I pronounced your name right, sir. Vice President and Managing Editor of Associated Press, thank you, sir. Mr. John Pullman, who's the Global Head of Video and Pictures of Reuters, thank you. Welcome. Not only just the ladies and gentlemen sitting on the front line, but also all of you, friends of CGTN coming from all over the world. We would like to thank you, representatives of members of the Belt and Road News Alliance, and also representative of CCTV Plus news sharing cooperative partners, client representatives of CCTV Plus, and delegates from provincial administrations of press, publication, radio, film, and television, as well as representatives from provincial TV broadcasters from all over the country. Thank you. 谢谢，再次感谢。You know what? I was informed before coming into this hall of several astounding numbers. 380 of you coming from all over the world, 100 different media organizations from 45 countries and regions. Wow. As an ardent fan and also a member of the CGTN team, I am very proud. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. We are here. 可以有掌声，这个地方。We are here for a shared future. Certainly, this is a future of hope, of opportunities, innovation, creativities, and cooperation, but also a future that is not without challenges. We are gathering here with keynote speeches, panel discussions, and networking. Over the next 2 days, be able to figure out some of the best solutions to the current challenges and certainly best practices to be shared. Okay, without further ado, may I have the honor to introduce the first keynote speaker of the day, Mr. Jiang Heping, Controller of CGTN 总监江和平先生 to officially open the sessions and present the first keynote speech. Innovation and creative practices in the new era. 新时代、新探索、新实践。有请江总。
Distinguished guests and friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of CCTV President Mr. Nie Chenxi and Vice President Mr. Seng Yushen, I would like to extend our warm welcome to your coming to Hainan and to the CGTN Global Media Summit and the 7th VMF. This is the first global event hosted by CGTN. We look forward to making more friends at this event and to expanding our exchange and cooperation with you. And we hope our colleagues from around the world will take this opportunity to contribute their opinions and ideas on driving the future development of the media industry. It's an honor for me to share with you some of CGTN's own experience and thinking. We are living in an era of unprecedented change, development, and integration. The media industry, too, is undergoing a profound reconfiguration. In this new climate, we need to explore new avenues for accelerating and deepening the integrated development of traditional and digital media. Of pressing importance is the need to create an innovative mode of communication by absorbing new technologies and new applications. This is now the consensus among media organizations worldwide. Clearly, the general trend in the media industry is shifting towards mobile access, video content, and platform integration. In this new era, many traditional players are struggling to change and adapt. CGTN, though, is fortunate, as it doesn't have to go through a painful rebirth. As a brand new institution, CGTN has inherent integration genes. As China's flagship global media organization, China Global Television Network was launched on December the 31st, 2016. Distinct from a traditional TV station, CGTN is committed to media convergence. As a multilingual, multi-platform institution, it operates 6 TV channels, 3 overseas production centers, a video news agency, and a digital media division. Reflecting the priority we give to mobile distribution in our integrated communication, we have established the CGTN News Center to coordinate the work of our Beijing headquarters with that of our North American and African operations. The News Center directs the production of news content in 5 languages: English, Spanish, French, Arabic, and Russian, which is then distributed via television, mobile networks, our news app, and digital media, and also as video footage. Based on the principle of versatile news gathering, sharing across platforms, and distribution through multiple channels and terminals, the News Center has optimized its resource sharing. In addition to the vast amount of real-time TV and digital media content generated by CCTV, it has access to information provided by more than 25,000 global internet outlets and 70 of the world's leading media organizations. Its innovative configuration of workspace, technology, and management supports the seamless integration and complementarity of television broadcasting and digital media. The future of the media industry is a subject of debate in China. Some argue the content is king. Others champion technology, and yet others put accessibility above everything else. A precept of ancient Chinese philosophy is that one can only be king by uniting heaven and earth. I believe that the Chinese character for king holds the key. The character, which is Wang, is composed of 4 strokes. To my mind, the 3 horizontal bars represent content, technology, and accessibility, which are made whole by the vertical pillar, that is, integration. In the media today, only integration can be king. To carry the analogy further, I believe that the character Wang actually lacks a stroke. With the addition of a stroke at the top, Wang becomes Zhu, a character denoting, in one sense, that which is fundamental, and also the word for God. For media organizations, our users are fundamental, and our audience is our God. CGTN's TV channels are currently available in 170 countries and regions worldwide, watched by a total of 387 million viewers Our various digital media platforms boast more than 87 million global subscribers. As of early November, CGTN's English Facebook account had attracted 52.69 million subscribers, more than any other media organization in the world, and its YouTube account had garnered over 300 million hits. Launched simultaneously with CGTN was its mobile news app. Of more than 3.1 million downloads to date, 95% have originated outside China. In the era of integrated media, television is being redefined, and it's you, the user, who is giving television its new identity. Wherever our millions and millions of users lead us, CGTN will follow. Integrated communication requires the guarantee of a solid mechanism and sound management. At CGTN, we are committed to the 5 I's. They are innovative, invigorated, interconnected, inclusive, and interactive. Innovation is the key to development. Unburdened by historical baggage, CGTN is eager to pursue innovation and blaze a new trail in the integrated development of television and digital media. Vigor is the main criterion for measuring a media organization's competitiveness. CGTN's TV channels and digital media platforms are well equipped to adapt invigorated approaches in content gathering and presentation, and thereby to share with and involve their users. Only by being interconnected can we achieve integration and cohesion, and can we regulate operations and production across the whole organization. Having defined inclusiveness as a prerequisite for its growth, CGTN provides a climate in which reformers and innovators can flourish. Interactivity is the basis of integrated communication. By embracing the idea that communication is no longer one way, CGTN aims to achieve mutually beneficial cooperation between traditional broadcasting and digital media. By integrating the content of conventional and modern terminals and their respective audiences, we hope to create a virtuous circle between desktop screens and handheld devices, and to achieve the targeted distribution of information. CGTN's innovations have benefited greatly from the achievements of our media colleagues' untiring work. However, on the path of our further development, many questions still await answers. First of all, the patterns of communication via integrated media are still shifting and changing. To date, by prioritizing mobile distribution and live video streaming, by employing the various terminals of television, personal computer, and handheld devices, and by creating accounts on Facebook, YouTube, and Weibo, we have diversified our output. However, in adapting to the specific features of various platforms and evaluating the effects of our live webcasting, we have yet to find definite solutions. Our second challenge comes from the need to improve the way we communicate. Having successfully embraced digital media, mobile platforms, video content, and interactivity, we are now seeking ways of improving more personalized content. Thirdly, we have to ensure that we are constantly improving as an organization. We need to build up an editorial staff capable of adapting to the demands of various media and a team of versatile journalists. We must continuously push the boundaries in our organizational and structural innovation. With these questions in mind, I'm looking forward to hearing the ideas and opinions of this forum. Openness brings progress, while aloofness inevitably results in being left behind. I think this is the implication of a shared future. Chinese President Xi Jinping has said that China will not close its doors to the world and will only become more and more open. We believe that an open China will inject more vitality into the development of the media. To this end, we are proposing the CGTN Plus initiative, designed to strengthen media content sharing, information integration, business, and personnel exchanges. CGTN Plus content. We are building an international video archive based on CGTN's mobile platform. CGTN Plus partnerships. We are seeking global innovative partnerships for sharing resources and programs, for developing new types of programs, and for conducting comprehensive exchange and cooperation. CGTN Plus intellectuals. We are inviting professionals from around the globe to join the CGTN commentators team and ultimately create a global think tank. CGTN Plus talent. We are proposing the establishment of a joint venture, the Micro Video Communication Foundation, which will select talented amateur directors and to provide them with training opportunities, workshops, and a broadcast platform. As the ancient Chinese saying goes, those who ignore the new will be stuck in the past. To survive and thrive in this era of change, we must keep an open mind and embrace new ideas. I hope that you will join CGTN in embracing change and creating a brand new era for the world media. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jiang, the controller of CGTN, for that encouraging, shall I also say, thought-provoking opening remarks. You help many of our friends coming from all over the world to understand better about the cooperation opportunities with CGTN Plus, the wonderful idea you just presented, and certainly with some of the new principles CGTN is going to embrace 5 eyes, as you said, for the future. Thank you once again. 谢谢您. Next, shall we welcome to the stage Mr. Xu Yingpu, who is the Deputy Editor-in-Chief of China Daily, 中国日报社副总编许迎普先生. He is going to present us innovative ways to tell China's story in a new era.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Mr. Jiang, thank you for inviting me to the CGTN Global Summit. It's so nice to be away from the chilly and smoggy north, even for just a few hours. First, let's look at the questions. These questions could have been asked several decades ago by a foreigner who came across a Chinese person. But actually, they are provided by foreign netizens on Quora just in the last few years. A Chinese person may find it hard to believe such questions are even asked. The fact is that China has more than 300 million cars, 22,000 kilometers of railway, 700 million internet users, and China is the world's second largest economy, contributing more than 30% of world economic growth. The answers are easy to know, but the questions are still frequently asked. Why? Because the world still does not know China well. And it needs to know China better because China has entered the brand new era. The Communist Party of China has just convened its all-important National Congress. The meeting enshrined President Xi Jinping's thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era. The ruling party is more confident than ever before in realizing the great rejuvenation of the country and in building a community of shared future for mankind. As China has entered the new era, we need innovative ways to tell China's story in the new era. I would like to share in 4 aspects how China Daily has reporting on China's new era innovatively. Plans and creativity are where good content comes from. Here is an example. There was a cancer-stricken 8-year-old child in the U.S., Dorian Murray, whose father posted on Facebook using the hashtag #DStrong that Dorian's greatest wish was to climb the Great Wall and become famous in China. One of our reporters in the U.S. saw the post and reported to the headquarters in Beijing. At a planning meeting in Beijing, we decided to report on the boy's story throughout not only words and pictures, but also action. Our reporters and editors held large printouts of #DStrong, the hashtag, to have pictures taken and printed out on the front page of China Daily. We also published Dorian's stories on Weibo, the influential social media, and asked our followers to help Dorian realize his dream. It turned out that many people went to the Great Wall, held the pictures of #DStrong, gave the boy their best wishes, and realized his dream of becoming famous in China. We published on our Facebook page the pictures of China Daily's front page and of the Chinese sending Dorian their best wishes from the Great Wall. It was a touching story. His family saw our posts on Facebook and wrote on our page, thanking China Daily for helping the child and his family. It was Dorian's story, and China Daily made it a China story. Pushing forward the fusion of different media channels, we have made full use of videos as a measure of expression. Launched a series such as Good Luck China and Decode China, and nurtured quite a few foreign celebrities, such as Greg Fountain and Eric Nielsen, who are very popular among Chinese on the internet. During the Belt and Road Forum for the International Cooperation, this is one of our video clips.
I'll miss you.
Why?
I'm going to attend a forum in Beijing on the Belt and Road Initiative.
What's that?
Okay. Once upon a time, several routes led from China through Central Asia to Europe. It was called Silk Road. People would put things on camels and cross the desert to trade with other people.
Like countries sharing?
Yeah, and then later, ships traveled from China through Southeast Asia to Africa. And they'd bring things back to China like giraffes.
Is that how the Beijing Zoo got drafts?
No, that was a long time ago.
What's that have to do with the forum?
Well, a few years ago, China's president, Xi Jinping, proposed making new routes like the old route.
Okay, I will not play the full length of the video. It's a 5-episode video series called Belt and Road Bedtime Stories. Our senior reporters, Eric Nielsen, who comes from the United States, produced these episodes in the form of bedtime stories taught to his daughter. He explained what the Belt and Road are, how to build them, which countries are involved, what benefits the initiative can bring, where the money for construction will come from, and other questions concerned with the concept that the world still needs to know. The feedback has been surprisingly good. The videos have been broadcast more than 50 million times, and more than 100 media outlets around the world reported on the productions. Foreign media call the episodes a major innovation of China's method of publicity, and we think it is a phenomenal production. New technologies have mushroomed, such as big data, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, automated writing, and unmanned aerial vehicles. Technological innovations are also made day-to-day at China Daily's offices and overseas. China Daily's Asia-Pacific Bureau researched artificial intelligence video reporting technology and put it into use in the interviews for a world first in 2016. During the competition for the annual UK News Awards in April, the project, Bhumika can speak for herself, beat entries from the Financial Times, Reuters, Google, the Daily Telegraph, and other media and technology giants, and won the second place of the International Digital Information of the Year category. In June, during the prestigious Society of Publishers in Asia Awards for Editorial Excellence, the project beat a Pulitzer Prize-winning entry and became winner in the category of Journalistic Innovation for International Media. During the 2 sessions in March this year, we produced a documentary with our reporter Greg Fountain, arriving at the land of the hobbits and explaining hot words at the 2 sessions since China's reform and opening up started nearly 4 decades ago. How did we get the hot words? We used big data analysis technology. It was not cutting-edge technology, but when we use it in journalistic reporting, the result can be incredible. The story, the history is reviewed, the contemporary is analyzed, and the future is forecast. The project has more than 50 million views on the web. More than 100 million people in China have watched the program. While preparing our newspapers, we have been exploring channels of cooperation with foreign media. This is the front page of China Watch on April 26 this year. It is mainly about achievements made at the meeting of President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump at the Mar-a-Lago resort in the United States. Trump wrote a note on the China Watch page to President Xi saying, "Jinping, a great meeting, best wishes." He arranged for a White House staff member to send the paper to the Chinese embassy in the US and have it delivered to Beijing. President Trump pays great attention to China daily. During his visit to China in early November, he used his Twitter account to publish a photo of China Daily front page. On the page, there is this picture of the two first families standing together in front of the main hall of the Palace Museum in Beijing. The tweet was seen around the world. China Watch is also becoming multimedia. Its paper edition cooperates with 26 renowned media outlets in 18 countries and has a global network that uses 7 languages. Every issue has a circulation of more than 5 million. It has also built channels at the websites of several of the partners. China Daily has made many efforts and recorded many achievements in innovations and in cooperation with foreign media. Due to the time limit, I can only share this much. I'm well aware that innovation is the key word for the entire media industry. China Daily looks forward to learning from the innovation of our colleagues in and outside China to better carry out our mission as a bridge between this country and the rest of the world. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chu. From bedtime stories of Belt and Road Initiative to the artificial intelligence, we are, together with you, very proud of what you and your colleague have achieved. And thank you so much for being a friend of CGTN throughout the years. 接下来让我们邀请 Next, we would like to welcome to the stage Mr. Shi Anbing, Associate Dean of International Development with School of Journalism and Communication with Tsinghua University. 清华大学新闻与传播学院副院长史安斌教授 He is going to present to us Reshaping the Order of Global Communication under the background of Belt and Road. 有请。
So I first like to thank you, CGTN and CCTV Plus, to give me this opportunity. I would think President Xi gave me a very interesting rehearsal for my talk because he used bedtime story to actually tell what exactly about this One Belt, One Road I'm going to talk about. I decided to use sort of like mixture. I would present in English for our global audience, and while my PPT was still in Chinese, so that we could actually have a better understanding of how One Belt, One Road means for our global media professionals. This is a new book I'm going to publish actually next month. It is called China's Media Go Global. This is the first book in English actually want to share with our media professionals and global academia about in the past 6 years, China initiated this so-called charm campaign. Actually, we have 6 major media outlets. Most of the general editor will sit at this presence of this global summit. They actually circulated in the world and also expanded their global outreach in this global media sphere, including CGTN was obviously the flagship media organization, and our Xinhua News Agency was at present is in Times Square. China Daily, you have just heard from President Xi. So this book is going to actually have an overview of what we have actually done in the past 6 years, the pros and cons and all future and prospects. So I think that the main thing that we need to initiate this so-called global media, because this summit is as a global media, was proudly actually initiated by my colleague, President Liang Qichao. He was actually the earliest generation of Chinese media professionals as early as late 19th century and early 20th century. So in his blueprint for Chinese media development, he said that Chinese newspaper should develop from one person's newspaper and one party's newspaper to one country's newspaper and finally to global newspaper. Of course, at that moment, his newspaper was dominant media. So we can actually transfer that concept to global media. So exactly from the very earliest Chinese generation of media professionals, global media is their dream. So we are actually among the generation who will bring this dream into reality. So I would really argue that Chinese media professionals also hold this global media as a core concept in the Chinese media development. Obviously, we talk about One Belt and Road, back to my theme, that we have to mention these two guys. One is Joseph Nye. You all heard of this Harvard professor, actually initiated South Power. Recently, he published an article after Donald Trump was elected as US president. He said there might be a danger of what's called a Kinderberger trap. And Kinderberger trap was actually initiated by MIT economist Charles Kinderberg in 1960s. He published a book. He would argue that what happened in 20th century, the major two world wars and also the financial crisis, is due to we have the Kinderberg trap. By that, he means that there is no major world power would shoulder responsibility for providing so-called public good. Because as you know that in between 1929 and 1939, actually UK was already receded into the second place, and United States replaced UK as the global power. But at that moment, the US refused to provide this kind of so-called public good, or refused to shoulder responsibility. So what Joseph Nye actually alluded Charles Kinderberg is to, he worried this situation would come again, because at this moment, US was already claiming itself the American first. So they do not want to shoulder their global responsibility anymore. And China is still hesitant to be a global leader. So this might be a rehearsal of what we have witnessed in the early 20th century between 1929 and 39. So this is the basic idea of the Kinderberg trap is all about. One Belt, One Road was actually initiated under this context, but so far as my observation of the Western media about the One Belt, One Road, we have seen this kind of two stories. One is they would say this is China's version of Marshall Plan. So China want to imitate what the US has done in 1950s to initiate this Marshall Plan as China's ambition of dominating the world. The other story is about Trojan horse. This is really more ideological or even more about the value system. China wants to play as a Trojan horse to try to challenge the so-called mainstream ideology and the mainstream value system that had been actually heralded as the very core of Western civilization since the Enlightenment movement. So these are two basic misunderstandings of One Belt, One Road that the Western media has provided so far. So if I want to make a very short comparison between this One Belt, One Road, some Western media would say this is the so-called Sino-globalization. So if we have Sino-globalization, obviously we have Anglo-globalization and Americanization. This is the two waves before this so-called Sino-globalization. So what we have actually seen as these two Anglo-globalization and Americanization is actually, I would say they have very strong concept of the realpolitik and build a free world. Winner takes all, my way is the best way, and the might is right. So I think what's shared between this Anglo-globalization and Americanization is that they have this following very distinctive ideology. Whereas for Chinese version of, or if we link this Anglo-globalization and Americanization, we would also say this is actually empire communication related to the rise of telegraph. And also the Americanization would link with the rise of broadcasting media and also electronic media and social media. So media actually play a very important role in the whole process of this globalization. So we would actually have the empire communication to international communication and global communication in this line of the history. Then I would say there's two trends actually we need to notice that there is a shift, the power shift of global communication, not only in the power shift of the sphere of politics and economy, but also in the sphere of the media sphere. One thing is that we have so-called the BATN, so the bad camp and also the fun camp. These two camps, China-led camp and also US-led camp, dominate the internet sphere. So there is actually, for the first time in the history of global media development, there is a country which is non-West, which is a so-called marginalized country, actually shared the equal space with the global leader, such as the United States. And then secondly, in the year of 2015, the language of Arabic and also language of Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, surpassed English as the first mostly frequently used language in the sphere of social media at a certain moment of the political events. So this is actually indicate the order of global communication will also be shifted in accordance with this so-called post-West, post-order, and post-truth new sphere. So this is actually a graphic showing that this now the internet actually are divided by these two camps, China-led camp and also US-led camp. So under this category or under this context, we will see this one belt, one road. I would not argue it as a Sino-globalization because I would really think this is a new globalization because it's not actually just led by China. It's actually led by the so-called the rest in the yardstick of the West. We will see that in this category we have so-called the empowerment and also cosmopolitanism and also the community of shared future was the core of this new globalization. Particularly in this sphere, we also would, if we trace back to the history of global communication, we'll see that actually in the late 20th century, we have two initiatives. One is called NWICO. This is New World Information Communication Order, actually led by a group of intellectuals from the West, and also a group of developing countries initiated by India to try to challenge by this US-UK duopoly of global communication. But of course, it failed because both UK and US actually they tried to recede from the UNESCO at the end of the 1980s. And the second wave is called WSIS, the World Summit of Information and Society. So these two initiatives want to reshaping the global communication. So in this sense, I think the third wave of the China-led reconstruction of global media communication order under the context of One Belt, One Road was actually inherit from the historical heritage of this of this NWICO and WSIS. So if we also compare a little bit of the Marshall Plan and the One Belt, One Road, as I argued earlier, most Western media will think, okay, the One Belt, One Road is the China version of Marshall Plan. We'll find that there's a major difference because in Marshall Plan, there's a very distinctive ideological core to build the free world. The free world was very distinctive in their plan. Whereas in One Belt, One Road, basically they were inherited the Chinese traditional idea of Tianxia, which is the traditional Chinese philosophy of the idea of the global geography, and also the Kantian philosophy from Germany, which we call cosmopolitanism. So I think in terms of ideology, Marshall Plan actually diverged from this One Belt, One Road plan. I think I would offer CGTN, although President Jiang didn't actually mention the example, but I want to reiterate this example that CGTN, I think from very beginning, want to build a sort of neutrality and also a kind of most neutral media in the world. And we also have statistics from the global academia. This is a report I released in September. There is an organization from South Africa to evaluate all the political standing, the criteria of selecting news, and also the balance of reporting and the comprehensiveness of reporting. So this is the 4 basic categories used to evaluate all the medias through the world. So you can see that CGTN was just in the middle. So especially, as I just said, after Trump was elected as the US president, the world entering into this post-world, post-order, and post-truth era, we were seeing that most media actually have a slightly different diversion, whereas most we call leftist media and also rightist media. Obviously, New York Times and also all these media was a little liberal, and Fox News was represented rightist, and CGTN was evaluated by this group of scholars as just in the middle. So this could be a very, I would say, a powerful index of showing what exactly a global media China want to convey to the world. Probably CGTN as a neutrality would be a kind of very strong indication in this category. So roughly, I would say in the course of this One Belt, One Road initiative, I would say we would argue kind of China story 2.0. Just now, I think President Jiang and President Xi share us with the China story that CGTN and China Daily should present. But I would argue that this China's story has actually 2 versions. One version is the 1.0 version, basically that China was a kind of follower. The following the Western ideology want to try to surpassing United States, UK, and the Western world. Whereas under the context of One Belt, One Road, the China story 2.0, actually the story, the theme of the story has been transferred to rise with the rest. We need to tell a story how Chinese development matter with other countries, or especially the developing world, especially all these countries along the line of One Belt, One Road. So this is what I argue with the China story 2.0. This is different from the China story 1.0 we have told. And secondly, I would also think that we need to have a kind of what I call the dialogic communication, or what we call the polyphony of communication. Just like President Xi said, One Belt, One Road was not China's solo performance. It must be a sort of like orchestra led by China. So I think it's very similar to what we argue the new landscape of global communication under this context of One Belt, One Road. Because in this category, we would say this is more like a sort of polyphonic communication, not just sort of like UK, US, duopoly, as we have seen in the last 3 decades. There's only 2 countries, an English-dominated global media order, but we want to see actually a new landscape of many countries will participate, and we have dialogue between different civilizations. And finally, I would also think this importance of infographics. That is why we have this summit. I think especially CCTV Plus and CGTN emphasized importance of the video content. As you can see that One Belt, One Road, this is very highly ambitious content. We actually, all these countries in the line of the Belt and Road was very complicated in terms of language, civilization, and culture. So I would say this infographics could be a very expedient solution of solving this cultural and civilizational and language and other kind of differences, because according to the psychologist survey, that we would process all this information related to graphics and video first over words and other forms of stories. So information visualization would be a very powerful ways for us to actually reshaping this global communication. So finally, I would also have something about China's effort of building this one Belt, One Road is also related to the infrastructure change. At the beginning, I offered the story of the Kinderberg trap. So the idea of the Kinderberg trap is that nobody wants to provide public good. I would say this public good also including infrastructure in terms of information construction. So far, China has initiated with Pakistan and also many countries in Africa to build this internet highway, and also very initiative, I think, ambitious project of this information structure construction. This is also we call it BRICS cable, which is the BRICS cable is actually a line that is different from this so-called Atlantic and Pacific cable, in that we will link these 5 major countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, into a new line of this telecommunication. So this so-called public good construction was also China's initiative of use One Belt, One Road, of reshaping this global communication. So finally, we would say that on the very left end of this structure, we'll see this so-called global communication in 1930s. And actually, when U.S. become a global power, what they have done is actually terminated the so-called press treaty, actually dominated by Germany, France, and UK, the so-called old powers. So at that moment, when we enter into a new era, as many people mentioned this term, I think what the media professionals and also the communication spheres want to do is that under this new context, we need to reshaping global communication from the very beginning. We need to build a more justified, more neutral, and more balanced way of reporting the world, and also a more comprehensive, more diverse picture of the global communication typography. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Shi Anbing, as a leading scholar of China's globalization communication with the rest of the world. Thank you. Whether it is Kinderberg trap or Systis trap, those are the things of the past, as you mentioned, and the world is changing fast. So we are going to catch up with the changes and bring the best of media groups from around the world. Let's go to our next speaker, Mr. Brian Caraviallo, Vice President and Managing Editor of Associated Press. He's here to share with us an important topic: why we need investigative journalism more than ever. Sir.
CGTN and CCTV Plus for having me. It's very nice to see all of you and to spend some time in such a beautiful place. Before I get into the topic at hand, I'm going to start with a little video that will tell you something about the AP today. Make sure this works.
We see nations transformed. We see bravery, victory, courage. We see defeat, destruction, and loss. While the world watches, we report.
I was there when the Russians invaded Georgia, and I was there during the US-led invasion of Iraq.
In every nation around the world, wherever there's a story to be told, we'll be there.
We present ourselves as journalists and tell people exactly what we're there to do, which is to tell their story.
Stories that investigate. Stories that entertain.
Tonight, let's be honest, you're probably going to win an Oscar.
Stories that inspire.
That's my challenge each day. To wake up and make photos that capture this complex and fascinating country where I live.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up
We reach more than half the world's population every day.
Working for AP means being able to reach the most global audience of any organization.
And behind every story is our promise that the news we report is accurate, trustworthy, and unbiased.
I'm going to take some questions, and I will start with Julie Payson.
The most important thing that I've learned is to report with compassion and respect.
I'm part of a legendary news organization that was built on accuracy, fairness, and reliability.
That's been our mission since 1846, and it's our mission today.
I've been a journalist for nearly 30 years. This is just an organization I'm proud to be a part of.
I would not trade this job that I have for anything in the world.
We're your definitive source for news. We're with the Associated Press.
I'm 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 with the Associated Press.
I am with the Associated Press.
I'm with the Associated Press. I'm with the Associated Press.
I am with the Associated Press.
I'm with the Associated Press.
My name is Brian Carvellano. I'm also with the Associated Press. And as Vice President and Managing Editor, a big part of my area of responsibility is AP's enterprise and investigative reporting around the world. And that's actually what I'm here to talk about a little bit today. I was actually originally invited to give a speech with the proposed title of Investigative Journalism and Outdated Practice, ? And I wish I could give a speech with that title, and I wish that investigative journalism was an outdated practice, because that would mean that there's no longer any injustice in the world. It would mean that there's no longer any need for the rich and powerful to be held to account for their actions. It would mean that there was total transparency about how public funds were being used and dispersed. And it would mean that governments, militaries, corporations, and other powerful institutions around the world always and invariably acted in service of the public good, and that they never have anything to hide. And sadly, that is not the case at all. In fact, I would say at no point in my career as a journalist, which spans more than 20 years, has the need for investigative journalism been greater. Transparency is on the decline around the world. Injustice is, in fact, on the rise. And growing inequality is a global trend, and it's increasingly driving the political agenda around the world. The kind of meticulous forensic reporting that investigative journalists do is now more valuable than ever. Also, the technological tools we have with which to do this kind of reporting is making possible stories that weren't even conceivable a generation ago. From sophisticated data analysis tools and software that can instantly analyze millions of pages of documents, to the use of satellite imagery and drones, to artificial intelligence and machine learning. So for all those reasons, I kind of made the decision here not to give a presentation called Investigative Journalism and Outdated Practice, ? The name of this presentation, as you can see on the screen, is Investigative Reporting, More Important Than Ever. The origins of investigative reporting spring from the simple concept that a society needs a free and inquisitive press. In the United States, for example, this belief was enshrined in a portion of the U.S. Constitution that's known as the Bill of Rights. And that reads, as you can see on the screen, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It was the journalists of the Industrial Revolution in the late 19th and early 20th century who really gave rise to the idea of deeply investigating a single topic, sometimes for months and even years at a time. And the work of these journalists has changed and continues to change the course of history. And that history teaches us that it has been during times of great upheaval and division when investigative journalism has been most essential and when it's had the most impact. Let me give you a few examples. One of these eras was the turn of the 20th century, when there was a tremendous flood of immigrants from Europe into the United States. And they came to find work in factories where the working conditions were absolutely deplorable and often deadly. That period gave us the work of Ida Tarbell and Upton Sinclair. Sinclair wrote in stomach-churning detail about the conditions in meat packing plants in his book, The Jungle. This work helped drive the labor movement in America and in Europe, which over time resulted in dramatic improvements in working conditions and the rise of the progressive movement around the world. If you want to talk about journalistic impact, how about the 40-hour work week and something that we all take now for granted, which was invented at this time, the weekend. The late 1960s and early 1970s was another time of great political upheaval. Journalists at the New York Times and other American news outlets, relying on leaked government reports that became collectively known as the Pentagon Papers, revealed that successive presidential administrations had misled the public about the level of U.S. military involvement in Vietnam. Also at that time, Seymour Hersh, who was a freelance journalist working in Vietnam, revealed one of the worst wartime atrocities of the 20th century when he reported on the massacre of civilians by U.S. troops at My Lai. These reports played a major role in turning the tide of public opinion against the war. Historians now look at that journalism, as well as the dispatches of journalists braving daily dangers on the battlefields of Vietnam, with helping to bring about the end of that war. Of course, the social unrest of the late 60s and early 70s was only partly driven by the anti-war movement. It was also a time marked by the civil rights struggle in the United States and the assassinations of both Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. One of the most famous stories of that era was that of Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. Their dogged source reporting for the Washington Post led to the Watergate scandal and the resignation of U.S. President Richard Nixon in the early 1970s. These are journalists whose work helped influence the course of history, who worked during times of great division and great upheaval in the world. And I'm here to tell you, friends, that we are living in just such a time. Many countries around the world are struggling with an economic climate in which a majority of individuals continue to amass more and more wealth while the masses fall farther and farther behind. Things we all see as pathways to a better life, good jobs, home ownership, higher education, access to better technology are unattainable to many people around the world. Also, a growing number of people are relying exclusively on social networks for news and information. This has some benefits, but it also allows them to tune out perspectives and points of view that don't conform to their own opinions. This has caused an information crisis that makes fake news believable and real news easily dismissed by politicians as fake. This is a toxic mix that has been a factor in the dissolution of long, stable political alliances in Europe. Think about Brexit, think about Catalonia. And it has also emboldened authoritarian leaders around the world. This has been a pronounced trend in the United States, where the divisions between right and left are profound. The democratic system of government, which relies on reaching consensus through informed debate around a commonly accepted set of facts, breaks down when there are neither accepted facts nor consensus. And this is why we need investigative journalism now more than ever. Fortunately, we're living in a golden age for this type of reporting. This is partly because journalists have access to tools and to technology that were unheard of a generation ago. At the AP, we've made great use of satellite imagery in our investigative journalism, using it as a window into some of the most dangerous places on Earth. We used it to locate mass graves in Syria and to confirm that the Islamic State had destroyed treasured historic sites in northern Iraq. This satellite image of fishing boats off the coast of Papua New Guinea allowed AP reporters to locate trawlers that had escaped a government raid of a slave island in Indonesia. That was a follow-up to an earlier AP investigation that revealed the existence of this island. On this island, hundreds of Burmese and Cambodian men were being held against their will and employed as slaves on Thai fishing boats. That series of stories resulted in the freeing of more than 3,000 slaves. Here on the screen is a picture of one of those men being reunited with his family in Burma afterward. He had spent 22 years as a slave, and this was the first time he had seen his family, and our cameras were there to capture that reunion. So if you're questioning whether investigative reporting can have the same impact in 2017 that it had in 1906 or 1973, there's your evidence. More recently, Washington Post reporter David Fahrenthold made novel use of social media in his reporting last year on Donald Trump's charitable giving, or lack thereof, as it turned out. Farenthold used Twitter to crowdsource his investigation, asking the public for tips and suggestions. This effort had the added impact of creating total transparency around a process that historically has been held in a lot of secrecy right up to the point of publication. But in Farenthold's case, everyone who followed him on Twitter knew exactly what he was working on all year long. Cutting-edge technology also enables greater collaboration between journalists, often working in different countries and using different languages. Such tools allowed journalists at Germany's Süddeutsche Zeitung and more than 100 other news organizations around the world to collaborate on a single investigative project, which won this year's Pulitzer Prize for explanatory reporting, known as the Panama Papers. They worked together to efficiently pore over millions of documents, again using cutting-edge tools, and reveal the secret havens where the world's rich and famous stash their money. This project launched more than 150 criminal investigations in more than 70 countries around the world and has led to the conviction or resignation of numerous corrupt officials. Since investigative reporting remains a risky, even dangerous proposition in many countries, this kind of collaboration across borders may be the best strategy for continuing to shine light in dark places. Projects like this give me a lot of hope for the future of investigative journalism. It's one of the reasons my employer, the AP, as well as many other news organizations, are not only maintaining their commitment and their investment in investigative journalism, they're expanding it. And this is really notable at a time when the news industry faces unprecedented economic challenges. It also comes at a time when doing this kind of work has really never been more dangerous or risky. In recent years, the rise of nonprofit investigative outfits like ProPublica in the United States and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists has contributed to a resurgence in this kind of reporting. There are now nonprofit investigative reporting outfits in more than 50 countries around the world and counting. The AP has long been committed to investigations, including having done some of our most important work right here in Asia. In 1999, a team of AP journalists revealed the massacre of civilians by U.S. troops under a railroad bridge at Nogun-ri in South Korea. And of course, I've already mentioned the Seafood by Slaves, an AP investigation that was centered in Thailand, Indonesia, and Myanmar. Of course, not all our investigative reporting is quite so glamorous, nor so global. Local investigative reporting is also an essential part of what we and other news organizations do. And it can be dirty work, quite literally. In 1991, AP reporters who were working with colleagues at a local newspaper in South Carolina in the American South used construction equipment to dig through a trash dump to recover discarded documents detailing the misuse of taxpayer funds by the state university system there. They found the documents, which had been sprayed with human waste to accelerate decomposition. And that story led to the conviction of the university president, who had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money on gifts, vacations, and other luxuries for himself. At the AP, we currently have investigative reporters in locations all around the world who do this work as a full-time job, and many more of them who contribute to investigations all year long. And we plan to grow that team and to devote more resources to investigative reporting in the months and years ahead. We've also just hired a new global investigative editor to run all of this. His name is Mike Hudson, and he comes to us from the International Consortium for Investigative Journalism, where he edited the Panama Papers and a more recent project there called the Paradise Papers, which was published in the last few weeks. At the AP, we stand ready to collaborate and coordinate with our partners and colleagues around the world, not only on investigative projects, but on all kinds of journalism that advances what we see as one of the core contributions of journalism to society, to hold the powerful to account. This is not only good journalism that leads to good public policy, it's also good for business. In a crowded media landscape with an ever-growing number of news outlets competing for eyeballs and for attention, the best investigative reporting stands out from the noisy clamor. Our usage metrics consistently show that our investigations are among the most widely used AP content by our customers, and that's true across all media formats. Readers and viewers tend to spend more time engaged with reporting that has real depth and that breaks news. And that's true in print, on broadcast outlets, and online. And that's, I think, very good news for the future of journalism and for what we all do and hold dear. So no, I don't think investigative journalism is an outdated concept at all. On the contrary, I think it remains at the core of what we do as journalists, and it's as big a part of our future as it is of our past. Thanks for letting me talk about it a little bit with you all and for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Brian, for helping us understand the ever more important significance of investigative journalism in today's media landscape. Friend and partner of CGTN and CCTV, we are proud of you and your colleague, what you have achieved. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the very first session for this morning, we have gone through both about the development since the rebranding of CGTN, and also our friends and partners from all over the world share their views about the media in a new era. So now let's have 15 minutes tea break or coffee break, whatever you want to have it, and we come back for further discussion and panel discussion. Thank you so much.
Hello there, you're watching CGTN live streaming report. I am He Weiwei in Hainan province. Today, a lot of my colleagues here because CGTN is holding a global media forum right behind the meeting hall behind me. And just now, 4 of our guests have delivered keynote speeches. And the first one is CGTN controller Jiang Heping. He delivered a keynote speech about innovation and creative practices in the new era. And he talked about the importance and some of CGTN's attempts of new media convergence. And now is the tea break time. A lot of our guests are coming out, and actually it is a big event for media people because over 100 distinguished guests are gathering here. They are from dozens of media organizations, including the AP, Associated Press, and Reuters, Russia Today, Al Jazeera, and some other mainstream television organizations from other countries. And this is the meeting hall, and let's have a look around here. Hi. And after Mr. Jiang Heping, other guests from Tsinghua University, China Daily, and Associated Press also delivered keynote speeches. They discussed how we can tell Chinese stories. And now guests are here for a photo. And as I mentioned, today is a very big event for CGTN because this is the first time that CGTN is holding such a grand event. We invited over 100 guests of our counterparts domestically and overseas to discuss issues related to the media convergence and all the challenges facing our TV industry. So now you can see these are our CGTN colleagues. They're here shooting the photo here. And right in the middle in the black suit, and this one is the Mr. Jiang Heping, controller of CGTN, and also other directors and colleagues of our CGTN. Okay, it's tea break time. And let's see later if we can talk to some of the guests today to share their perspectives on developments of TV industry, my industry. Okay, and just to give you a little production of CGTN. CGTN was launched on December the 31st in 2016, which is the very last day of the year of 2016. And now it is less than 1 year since our launching, and we have over 380 million audience from around the world, from over 170 countries. And also our new media platforms, all platforms have a total number of subscribers reaching 87 million. That's quite a big number. And our CGTN account on Facebook has subscribers of 52 million, and that is ranking the first in terms of global news media on Facebook. And this year, in 2017, CGTN's account on Facebook was awarded as Facebook's outstanding news media page. That's quite encouraging because we are still a young media platform, but it's launched less than 1 year ago, but actually it is affiliated to CCTV, China Central Television. So there is a booth here. It's CCTV Plus. It's the video news agency under CCTV. And our major task here is to tell the story of China. And also here is a little room here. It's a special online studio. Some of our colleagues are doing interviews with some guests here. And again, for newcomers, you're watching CGTN live streaming. CGTN is holding a global media forum here in southern China's Hainan province. It is the first time that CGTN is holding such a big event. And here, this is the booth of our CGTN. Yes, our logo. And also our colleagues are waiting for their interviews. So we don't interrupt them because they're working. And also on this booth, we have some brochures of CGTN. CGTN, see the difference. And here, let's take a look at this. So this is the live broadcast of our news programs, and this is the point, one of our core programs in CGTN. It's a nice day where North China is suffering from cold and snow, and we are here in Hainan province to hold a global media forum. And let's see if we can talk to some of the guests here. Hi. Excuse me, sir. I can speak English?
Yes.
Hi, I am a reporter from CGTN. We're doing a live streaming report
Yes.
on iPhone. Can I have a little interview with you?
Yes.
Can you introduce yourself to our audience a little bit?
Yeah, I'm from Sri Lanka. My name is Nishant Alvis. I'm Chief News Editor in National Television. Yeah.
And so which organization are you from?
This is CGTN. This is a very nice organization. We have a lot of contacts with CCTV and a visual exchange program. And I have good experience for joining this conference.
So you are also working in the TV industry, right?
Yes, I am Chief News Editor in National Television.
Okay, so I think Sri Lanka is a member of this BRNA, that is the Belt and Road News Alliance. And tell me, because we TV industries, we're now facing a lot of challenges. So can you tell us how does your company, your TV station is coping with the situation and to do more on the media convergence?
Yes, this is Central Asia is a very important part of the world, and we can collaborate to Central Asian some nations, especially China and other Far East, Vietnam, Cambodia and other countries, especially Singapore. Yes.
So, you know, one important mission for our CGTN is to tell the story of China. And so as a counterpart, my counterpart in Sri Lanka, and how is the people in Sri Lanka, are they interested in China's stories, and which kind of stories are they most interested in?
Why not? This is China's stories is very human and very attractive, and this is, you know, that past experience we telecast on Chinese stories and earthquake. Yes, that's very huge response for Sri Lankan people.
Yes, because Chinese government also offered help to Sri Lanka, right?
Yes, of course. Thank you to this your president, of course. This help many help in the Sri Lanka to your president, and that many other development projects in the Chinese government. Yes, a lot of experience in Chinese. I think this is my 205 visit in China.
So, are you expecting your company, do you have any plan to cooperate with any Chinese media organizations to do media or reporting in the near future?
Yes, we have agreement with CCTV, and this we want to develop the relationship with Chinese with television and other print or electronic media.
Okay, looking forward to our Chinese stories are emerging on your screens of your TV channel. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Nice to meet you. 谢谢. He speaks English. And again, you're watching CGTN live streaming. We are here in Hainan to hold a global media forum. Today, over 100 guests are gathering here, and they are from different media organizations. I think roughly 50 media organizations, including some very renowned ones like AP, Reuters, Russia Today, Al Jazeera, and also our counterparts in many cities, especially along the Belt and Road Initiative. And later, there will be a launching ceremony of what's called BRNA, that is the Belt and Road News Alliance. A lot of guests are taking photos here. You know, some media, my colleagues, they are doing interviews over there with some of the guests here. Let's take a look at this big screen here. It's really not very common to see for me. It's a very long screen, and just now we just showed some trailers and some of our footages of programs to our audience and our guests. Okay, so just give you a little more introduction of our CGTN. As I mentioned, we were launched on the very last day of 2016. And actually, CGTN is short for China Global Television Network. But actually, it is not a traditional TV. We want to break this concept of a traditional TV channel or website. We want to integrate all these sources together. So CGTN is a multilingual and multi-platform news media organization, and we have 6 different channels. CGTN English channel is the flagship one, and also we have other 4 channels in languages of Russian, French, Spanish, and Arabic. And these 5, including English and including Chinese, these 6 languages are the working language of the United Nations. So China wants to tell its stories through this language to reach as more people as possible around the world. So let's see which we can talk to. Hello, sir, excuse me.
Hello.
Hello. I'm a CGTN reporter.
Hi.
And we're doing live streaming here.
Hello.
So you're from Reuters, right? So could you please tell us, are you going to have any speeches today?
Yes, I'm speaking this afternoon about the value of trust and how to deal with fake news.
Fake news. That's a very important issue. So I think with the popularity of our internet, there are more and more fake news today. But do you think that's a bad time for our media? Because we have to spend a lot of time to distinguish fake news and to deliver the truth to our audience.
Sure. No, I think it's a good time to be a journalist. I mean, right now, we're broadcasting to who knows how many people out there just using a microphone and a phone and the internet. And that's fantastic. So you can reach an audience easily. The important thing to do is to make sure that what you're telling them is truthful and accurate and honest. Because we can do it easily, but so can people who just want to pretend they're doing news or to publish fake news. So the important thing is to have some values, to stick to them, publish them, make sure people know what you're doing, and I think you'll be successful that way.
And you are in charge of the video and picture segment of Reuters. So I think nowadays the visualized reporting are getting more and more importance. So how can that help our news report?
Sure, I mean that's absolutely true. Most people get their news through a visual medium these days. Increasingly it's video on their smartphone. So in a way at the moment I think that's harder to fake. Because, if you can see something with your eyes, you trust it. So, accurate video from the ground showing the world as it is a road to success.
And we're here, the theme today is a shared future. A shared future cannot be without China. So, I'm curious, which kind of stories are your audience most interested? Chinese stories, I mean.
I think they're interested in the same type of stories that they are from the rest of the world. So stories that have a strong personal element, that are about people overcoming challenges or achieving something spectacular. Those stories are universal. So China is also not a very well-known society. So I think people are interested in general information about what life is like in China. I mean, for many years, China was a closed society to the rest of the world. These days, it's open. So I think ordinary life in China is interesting, and the stories of people who live here and how they succeed or fail in life.
That is also our mission, our CGTN's mission, to tell a real China to the world.
Yeah.
And we are here, just now the CGTN controller Zhang Heping delivered a speech and talking about the innovative and creative practices of new media convergence. So in terms of Reuters, what have you done in this sector, the media convergence?
So we're doing a lot of work in that area. In the past, Reuters was split into 3 divisions: text reporters who just wrote words, photographers who just took pictures, and video teams who just shot video. we've now merged them all together. We've trained each of them to do another skill. So we have text reporters taking pictures, we have video journalists writing stories. So that's one way we're converging. We're realizing one skill is not enough for a journalist. You need two these days.
And not only the converging inside a certain media organization, but also I think we are looking forward to more and more cooperation between different media organizations.
Sure. I mean, that's what this event is about. People sharing their knowledge, people learning from each other, and I think it's very valuable.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. John Pullman from Reuters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. And for newcomers, just to remind you, this is CGTN live streaming of a global media forum. And from this screen, you can see, actually, just now, 4 of our guests have delivered keynote speeches in the meeting hall. And from the screen, you can see what is happening inside. And now it's the tea break time, and so my colleagues are busy preparing for the next panel. And on the very next, our counterparts from Al Jazeera and other media agencies are together here to hold another panel to discuss international broadcasters and a new era of media converging. I think it's time for the guests to come in. And the new panel is about to begin soon.
As the nucleus of the new organization, CGTN English provides live news and current affairs programming 24 hours a day. From broadcast centers in Beijing, Washington, D.C., and Nairobi.
You're watching CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
CGTN is utilizing media convergence to carry out its mission. The strategy calls for using television as the driving force to power and expand mobile and digital presence. Its Media Convergence Center combines multi-format news gathering and multi-platform resource sharing, as well as multiple channel and distribution outlets. CGTN is also making strides and broadening its reach through advancements in social media, video streaming, live programming, and mobile access.
You're watching The Link.
CGTN boasts an extensive global reporting team with correspondents throughout China and around the world. With its official model of See the Difference, CGTN is committed to reporting global news from a Chinese perspective and telling China's stories for a global audience. CGTN. See the difference. CGTN, China Global Television Network, is a multi-language and multi-platform media grouping.
You are watching CGTN.
Its 6 principal TV channels are CGTN English, Spanish, French, Arabic, Russian, and CGTN Documentary, China's first state-level English documentary channel. It also includes CGTN Digital and CCTV Plus, which delivers visual news footage to other media organizations worldwide. As the nucleus of the new organization, CGTN English provides live news and current affairs programming 24 hours a day. From broadcast centers in Beijing, Washington, D.C., and Nairobi.
You're watching CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
CGTN is utilizing media convergence to carry out its mission. The strategy calls for using television as the driving force to power and expand mobile and digital presence. Its Media Convergence Center combines multi-format news gathering and multi-platform resource sharing, as well as multiple channel and distribution outlets. CGTN is also making strides and broadening its reach through advancements in social media, video streaming, live programming, and mobile access.
You're watching the link.
CGTN boasts an extensive global reporting team with correspondents throughout China and around the world. With its official model of See the Difference, CGTN is committed to reporting global news from a Chinese perspective and telling China's stories for a global audience. CGTN, See the Difference. CGTN, China Global Television Network, is a multi-language and multi-platform media grouping.
You are watching CGTN.
Its 6 principal TV channels are CGTN English, Spanish.
How to do it, and how to do it for better content and the better future of our media organization. To answer those questions, I'm going to have a panel on the stage, going to be moderated by David Schlesinger, who's the founder of Tripod Advisor, and also he's a former editor-in-chief of Reuters and chairman of Thomson Reuters China. David, I want to welcome you to the stage together with your panelist, Ms. Liu Cong, controller of CGTN's English channel, Liu Cong CGTN 英语频道总监，欢迎同时 Mr. Michael Wigner, head of video and photo content at ARD, and Mr. Andrew Stevens, CNN international correspondent, Mr. Izzat Shahor, Al Jazeera Channel's Beijing bureau chief, and Ms. Dinara Tokosanova. I hope I pronounced your name right. Yes, there we go. Okay, please, ladies and gentlemen, come up to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, convergence is one of those terms that has bewitched news organizations for close to 2 decades now. But honestly speaking, it has not been the transformative savior of the industry many had hoped. Savior? No. Transformative? Probably yes. Cast your mind back to when I began in the industry in the 1980s, and the world then was in rigid silos. Print, wire, radio, broadcast. A journalist specialized. An organization specialized. Boundaries were rigid and were not crossed. But all that changed with the internet. All of a sudden, the end consumer could have on his or her computer screen all types of content mixed together. In an instant then, there was a new opportunity created for content makers to supply it all. An opportunity, yes, but also a threat. Because if you didn't have it all, or if you were incapable of providing it all at a consistent level of quality, your reputation and your business suffered. Over the past years, we have seen journalistic organizations becoming players across the space, from traditional to new media, from print to web, from words to images. And the inexorable pull has been for the immediate and the visual to become ever more important, to the detriment of anything slower and less dependent on images. The demands on journalists has been every bit as severe. A journalist unwilling to appear on camera has little career future. A journalist who can't move from writing a story to editing a podcast is an outcast. And still the changes are coming. Virtual reality, immersive content, artificial intelligence, and more. Media and technology are one. And we are converging to a new reality, a world away from what we have been used to. We have a great panel to discuss these tectonic changes, so why don't we begin with Liu Cong from CGTN. Why don't you talk a little bit about how CGTN, our host today, is dealing with these challenges and how you, as controller of the English channel, managed to go across everything from 24-hour broadcast to web services and more.
Okay. Thank you. Hello? Okay. Well, I think right now it is easier for our audience, or not, we don't say audience, we see our customers or users to get information right now because of the internet. And I think it is also easier for us, the media people, to deliver messages because we have more than television, more than newspapers, and more than just the one single venues of media. Right now we have dozens of platforms that we can use to provide information for our customers. And actually this is an era that the monopoly of news organizations as a news provider and news producer has been taken by what we call we media. Everybody actually can be a journalist, and you can post on your Twitter and Facebook, and you can be a journalist yourselves. And also, the source for the news organizations like us also has changed, because right now we monitor all the website, we monitor the other media organizations and try to find breaking news and try to locate some news sources. So it's changed our way of working, and it's changed our way of thinking. Here, there's a lot of challenges for traditional media people. And also, I think it's a great opportunity for us because right now, we don't compete each other because we beat each other. Right now, we are trying to provide more value for our customers and more value for ourselves. Here at CGTN, we just set up a news center. It's a sort of a media convergence experiment. We put TV channels and our digital team together. Right now, we don't have a head for television. We don't have a head for digital. We have a head for both. So, for example, if I'm on duty tomorrow, so I'll be there and I'll be in charge of all the platform under CGTN.
So news is news is news. You just don't.
It's news. It's just news. The content. So we monitor more than 25 million websites to get information, and whenever there's a breaking news happen, they will pop up on our big screen, on our monitor. And we also monitor 70 other traditional news organizations trying to find some breaking news. And then we'll have a trending map. We rely on the big data technologies. We can figure out which news pieces is on the rise. People's interest, whether they're interested in that or they're not. If people are interested in that, maybe we can do more on that. So we have these news sources, and the digital team and the TV team sit together. We have a planning sessions, and we'll decide what topics we're going to cover and how we will deliver it. Whether it is suited for Twitter, digital platform, for apps, or whether it is better for dialogue shows on TV channels. After that, we'll send our news gathering team out and do a versatile news gathering, and then all the platform we will customize the production for each platform. And after that, it's not the end. After that, we have this monitoring system. We'll try to monitor the performance on TV and also on different social platforms. If it doesn't work very well, maybe we can do some changes on that. So that's which actually we changed this whole system of our working process. And right now, we have this mobile-first strategy. So whenever, for example, if a reporter cannot do TV and digital media at the same time, then choose mobile first. So that's our strategy. So maybe that's what we are doing
well, that's
right
great.
now.
I mean, so that's interesting, and it sounds like a lot of work and very complicated for the people in charge to keep track of. Liu Cong talked about the difficulties that traditional media organizations have had. So, Michael, why don't you pick it up now, because ARD started life as a traditional broadcaster and now has been much more innovative and involved in convergence. So, can you talk about your experiences?
Sure, yeah. We are one of the old ones, really. I mean, because we have been ARD News as a public broadcaster financed by the people of Germany, have been around for 65 years now with the news like that. So it's a different story for us. We had to learn a different way. But it's been a very good experience because it has really changed in many ways. Of course, we have new platforms now. We are mostly present on all the big social media platforms, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google, on YouTube, on Instagram. All those platforms are serviced by us. And that's been a good experience because our television audience is still very strong. That is quite actually to our surprise sometimes, because we thought this would go down very quickly, but we see that our brand, the brand for which we stand, for which people pay us at ARD News, is really to deliver all the facts, to deliver all the sides of the story, to make people understand. So this brand has been very strong, and we were able, with this good television audience, to transform this also onto the new platforms. So new platforms is one thing that we have seen. We are present in that. But I think more importantly, what we have realized is the new dialogue. There's a new dialogue possible with our audience, which was not possible like 60, 50, 40 years ago. It was mostly through mail, through telephone, but now social media. This gives us a really new way of having a dialogue, and meaning, for instance, that we get about 15,000 comments every day on social media. It's a huge interaction rate. We have doubled, tripled our social media team to be able to deal with that and actually to take out of those comments what is new for us.
Can I just ask you, of those 15,000, how many are legitimate and how many are just people yelling at you because they don't like what you're reporting?
There's always a good sign of criticism, which is great, because we work for the people. We get paid as a public broadcaster by the people, by their fees every month. So, of course, there's a certain element in that, but there's a real big deal of helpful information for us as well. We discover new sources, we discover new topics, new pictures, new video. That is fantastic, but there's a big challenge. I think, unlike traditional sources where we know who we work with, you know, like our Eurovision partners from the European Broadcasting Union, we know who we work with there. But with those sources, I think as a broadcaster, you have to build a new process. So we have built a new process of verification. That's one thing we started when we worked with social media, really to look at these new sources and make sure that actually what we broadcast, we know that this is really the thing that is portrayed there. For instance, you know, we find on social media nowadays these days much faster breaking news, airplane crash, you know, terrible stories like that. Where do we take our first pictures from? We take them from social media sources. But as a broadcaster who has a brand where people come to, who they trust, and trust is really our main brand, then it's important to build this verification process. That's what we have done with different instruments, you know, that actually are available for everyone. And we have done one more thing, and I think that's important. That is really increase media literacy, to educate our users, our viewers, to make them aware how they can actually use those verification techniques themselves. It's nothing revolutionary to use a picture image reverse search, for instance, to find out if this picture was taken out of context or if it was from today. I think these are the challenges. These are the challenges not only for new broadcasters, but for traditional ones as well.
Thanks. Well, Dinara, I would turn to you now because RT is relatively new. How did you imagine a world of convergence as you were starting a new channel?
Well, you are very right. We were very lucky to be that young and to start developing on all the platforms and everywhere all together, not redesign ourselves for some kind of convergency. So we are only 12 years old, and we already have 7 TV channels and 6 web pages in different languages. And also we are #1 news organization on YouTube, having 5 billion views altogether and 6 million followers now. So, yeah, from the very beginning we were trying to be as innovative, as creative, and as kind of provocative as we could be. Yes, basically we are like all very young, and we really try our best every day to come up with some creative ideas. For example, this year is a big anniversary of Russian Revolution, like 100 years. So we were sitting and thinking, okay, what we can do with that? Not just doing like traditional reports, but what else? So we came up with the idea to create more than 100 Twitter accounts on behalf of Lenin, on behalf of Trotsky, on behalf of Nicholas II. And for a year we've been doing these accounts. And that was really fun. And you know, we did these Q&A sessions of Lenin in Twitter, for example. And also, that was all followed by the media organization RT, with like the logo of RT was redesigned as like 100 years ago, and it was called Russian Telegraph. And after like revolution on the 7th of November, it was renamed to Revolutionary Telegraph or something like that. Yeah. So. We also try to play with different formats. We have a very interesting and innovative department, RT360, and we try to do panoramic view of all the events that we can do. We even sent a camera to the outer space with the help of Russian cosmonauts, and we did the first ever spacewalk in 360. And it's possible to see it in the glasses, but also on the web, in YouTube. What's also interesting, we try to bring all these formats not to bring something to the web, but also take something from the web and bring it to TV format. So, for example, of course, we tried this. We actually created technology that we can show these panoramic 360 images during our TV broadcast. It's a flat, but still you can have this understanding it's panoramic. But also in terms of traditional TV broadcasts, we're trying to take some internet formats like short videos with subtitles and flat design and animation clips, and we try to bring it into traditional news programming, and it gives like really good results, very good ratings. And for example, our United Nations General Assembly coverage, 70th anniversary coverage, which was like a couple of years ago, was nominated for Emmy International for all these innovative kind of design. So we try to play with those kind of things.
Thanks. Izad, I'll go to you next, because I think Al Jazeera has convergence not just in terms of platform and not just in terms of web and broadcast, but also language as well and across different cultures. So it's quite a complex mix that you have to deal with.
Thank you, David. Actually, we are not very different of our friends in the RT, as Al Jazeera, despite its traditional global media, but at the same time, it is very new, or still very young media, as it's only 21 years old. So we lived in this, with the emerging of the new media, and it was not really, it was a challenge, but it was not a shock like other media for us. And in addition to that, as you know, Al Jazeera belonged to a region where social media and the new media played a very effective role, and I am referring here to what is so-called the Arab Spring. The social media and the new media played very, very effective role, but despite that, Al Jazeera still remain as the main source, even of those people who was using the new media. As if you remember, the giant screen in the Tahrir Square in Egypt was 24 hours broadcasting Al Jazeera TV. And even now, when the Gulf crisis erupted, the major two big Arab countries, Egypt and Saudi Arabia, they did not close Twitter and Facebook, but they demand to close Al Jazeera, which means Al Jazeera still playing that effective role. But despite that, I mean, it was a challenge, but we digested this challenge directly, and we had our new newsroom equipped with all of the necessary equipment of the new media. We launched a different platform in different and in multi-languages, whether in Facebook and Twitters and Instagram, and we broadcast our content live on these platforms. And in addition to that, we opened a local Facebook page and Twitter page for each bureau abroad. We have around 70 bureaus worldwide. And also we launched two channels called AJ Plus English and Arabic, providing a short movie with animations or with graphics or with short movies. So I think the question now is not how can we face these new challenges, but how can we develop the coexistence with each other between the traditional platforms and the new platforms. I think we are doing very well in this case.
Thanks for that. Andrew, I'll finish with you in this first round. CNN has always been one of the most disruptive of organizations. I still remember how it completely transformed the wire service industry. I remember sitting in the Beijing bureau during the first Gulf War when Reuters was so used to breaking all the news, but instead, in the first Gulf War, we were quoting CNN all the time because you were there live. And that kind of innovation has continued, but how has that translated to a person actually in the bureau trying to report across all these different platforms? Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, I think that was CNN's calling card. That was our coming out moment. We were in Baghdad. We were seeing cruise missiles, and that's what really was the proper birth of CNN. Just before I go on to a point of Michael's and to a point of yours in a way about being first in news. And it was always a mantra for international journalism to be first. And what social media has done, what digitisation has done, is that there is so much access now to news events, which we may not have that first access to. But what we've noticed is people now turn to CNN to see whether it's true or not. So it's an accuracy story versus a speed story. So, and we pride ourselves in not going on any platform unless it's been as well researched and as well verified as we possibly can. Now, in answer to your question, David, yeah, the demands on me as a correspondent have changed in many, many ways because of social media. At the same time, I get much more support in head office or in Hong Kong, our Asia Bureau, as I used before. We've developed social media teams. We have a social media discovery team and a social media publishing team. So the discovery team is about 20-odd people worldwide, will look at everything that's, as much as they can, going out on the net, on Twitter, online, on Facebook, on everything, and then work out what is actual news and how to publish it. They can help me in the field. So when I'm called to a breaking story, and we're still breaking news, and we still pride ourselves on our core competency, which is breaking news, I will be tweeting on the way to that event. I will be obviously looking at tweets now, because what we found is Twitter is much more about actual short, sharp information which is very, very useful. for journalists in the field. So we're very, very close to Twitter. I'm tweeting. I'm with my camera person, of course. I'm with a producer. We may get a call from the social media team saying, can you make sure you provide certain pictures, still pictures, because we are doing a discovery or we're doing a newsline on this event. So our cameraman now doesn't do just video, they do stills, they do all sorts of things. Once I'm on the ground, it's still very much, and again, with the advent of technology, live view is a live process, which we go live virtually instantly on a mobile phone network. So we're up, we're live, we're expected to keep tweeting. Quite often we'll have a call again from the social media team saying, can you do a Facebook Live? So we will do between 8 and 15 minutes Facebook. This is what's going on, this is what I can see, let's walk around, let's do all this. This is in between doing our regular CNN news hits. The actual website itself will be wanting updated information, particularly colour from the scene. So my producer, will be filing just little sections of colour to build out the actual web page, the web story. So there's so much more than used to be, where you know, back in the day of Reuters, reporters went out for 2 weeks and came back with stories. Now we're on so many different platforms all the time. I just finished though by saying that it's all about getting the story right. So if I'm not comfortable, and there will be pressure on me to get stuff out, I will push back, and I'm expected to push back, and that is what we stand for, getting it right.
Thanks. I mean, I think all of you talked about how those basics have remained the same, about getting it right, doing the verification that you talked about as well. So I think that is reassuring, but it does sound quite exhausting to have to do all of that simultaneously. I was interested in what you were saying about Twitter, because one of the things that I worry a lot about, or think a lot about, is the miniaturization of news. So Twitter, you go down to 140 characters, or now 280 characters, that they've expanded a bit, but it's quite short. But beyond that, I think about how we've gone from the big screen to the small computer screen to now the smartphone screen, and beyond that, the wearable. I get much of my news on my Apple Watch now, Internet of Things. How much do you worry about platform and the miniaturization of news, and having to actually concentrate that experience on a smaller and smaller platform, or a shorter and shorter attention span? You're nodding your head. Is that something you think a lot about? Or,
of course. We have limited resources. We have to see how we fit all this in there. There's, not every day, but there's very often a new platform, new challenges. So, and you want to be right on those platforms. You want to do it right. You can just not transform your report from television onto those platforms. I think this is the mistake most of us in this room probably did at the very beginning. We thought that would work on there. Then we realized, no, it doesn't. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work developing new formats, new ways of digital storytelling, vertical video. We all didn't know at the beginning how that worked. Now it's very logical that people consume their news in commuting to work in the morning, for instance, on the train, on the bus, in this way. So we developed that. So we developed web videos, just as you described, web videos with a lot of script on there, so you don't even need the sound anymore with it, because we found out that that's the way that users like to digest. That's what I mean. That's a good thing about the dialogue that has been open, because we get lots of feedback. Why can't we have it this way? Why can't we have it that way? So we are learning a lot from that, and we are trying to adapt that. At the same time, and that I think is the problem, at the same time, of course, we have all these new platforms. So, and they work with their algorithms that we don't understand, that they might change every day. So we try to look at that, but at the same time bring people back to our platforms as well. I think it's very important. Do it on our platforms in a good way. For instance, these web videos do explanation, a lot of that. That's one thing we have found in the social media age, really, that there is so much need these days for more explanatory pieces, for making people understand, because there's so much information out there, to make people understand, if it's just in 30 seconds, in a little video, in a little explanation, how things work, what are the basic facts, because then you can do your balanced reporting. So, in essence, yes, It is a lot of extra work, but I think it pays off if you concentrate on what your brand stands for. And that is, again, our brand is very much about trusted news. That's where you come when you want to really find out what's going on. Then you come there, and then you will find those necessary ingredients, which is explanatory pieces, web videos, those things that explain a lot.
I just sort of just weigh in on this. I think it's a really good point, though, this miniaturization, the short forming of news. Because can you realistically, in a minute or a minute 30 seconds, get the essence of the story, the pros, the cons, the basic fundamental reporting? And this is a discussion we have in our newsroom a lot. There is pressure on us to keep it short and sharp. There is a lot of the reporters push back and say, no, this is vital information we have to get in. We are being listened to, and it happens. But it is a very real thing. You end up with this sort of, it's almost like a polarizing effect, because you don't have the space or the bandwidth to actually give a round view of what that story is. So I think it's a really valuable point. I think Twitter is good for facts, boom, this is what I'm saying, this is what's happening now, this is what's going on in front of me, or what I can drag from Twitter for my own reporting. And the other thing about, with the move to video, we, with our social media, a lot of it's experiential. It was told to me by one of our social media people, speak to your viewer as is your friend and take them on a guide, take them on an experience, which is a different way of traditional reporting, I'd have to say. But it's using that particular technology that way, which seems to us to be quite a successful way of doing it.
Liu Tseng, I just want to turn to you again, because I think one of the things that interests me is that CGTN is outward-facing for China. And yet a lot of the things that are happening in China in terms of technological innovation in news are very different from what's happening in the West. How much do you look at domestic innovations like Toutiao Xinwen or about Weibo and try and translate that and use that in thinking about new ways for CGTN to do its outward-facing work?
Actually, right now we are trying to set up sort of cooperation with this Toutiao and other domestic, new media organizations, because they have the most advanced technologies and perhaps the most advanced innovations. They sort of represent the trending of this industry. So we're trying to tap with them of the new technologies. For example, we're trying to take this VR and the AR technologies. Of course, we have to choose the content first. And then we're trying to set up this, multi-language automatic translation services. If you download our CGTN app, you can notice if you log on to our English pages, and there's a little button on the right corner. You can automatically translated all the English versions into Spanish, French, Arabic, and Russian. That's what we learned from the other media organizations. And also, I think the best way for them is the big data things. They use these technologies and they can collect the reading habits of the customers. The best thing is you can target your customers more precisely. The downside of this technology is that actually that will narrow down your knowledge. For example, if I watched read some technical issues in the following days, maybe all I get sent by the website are technical issues. Although I'm interested in politics and diplomatic things. So that's the downside. But we're trying to avoid that downside of the new media platform. But actually, I think they have many things that we can learn. For example, especially their promotion ways. Right now, there's so many informations, so many news every day. So how can you make sure that these particular news pieces can reach your target customers. There's some technology that we can learn from these companies.
Thanks. Then I would ask you about, as you mentioned, VR and things like that. Do you think a lot about virtual reality or 360 immersion as the next convergence hurdle for to go through, or do you think that that's more of a gimmick?
You know, it's been a discussion for a long time between us, and what we really try to do is, like, when we think to try not to try, we always try. So we just try to be pioneers in everything, to have like small devoted teams in each direction and see how it goes. The same with the 360. Like a couple of years ago, we just thought, okay, we have good technologies. We have cameramen ready to try, ready to experiment. Let's just try and give it a chance. And what we see now, it's that, you know, it works basically. There were projects that were not that successful, but for example, with 360, we had with the Space 360 in space, we had like 50 million views on all the platforms recently, and it's, I think, a great success. But, you know, we will see how it's going on. And I also wanted to mention about the technologies that that, you know, sometimes we just try to do something and see how it goes. So, like, recently we created a technology which allows to do a live streaming with 1 or 2 clicks directly to the social media accounts of anyone. So all RT channels use that, all clients, some clients of our Rapidly video agencies also use that, and our reporters as well. So it means that not only when you are somewhere in the field, you can stream to your Facebook or to your Twitter or YouTube or Twitch, but also if you are sitting in the office or you are doing your own blog, you can take a professional RT or Rapidly's video streaming and start streaming it with 1 click to your Facebook page, for example. So it's also some very simple but interesting technology that we try to implement and see how it goes.
Is that, I mean, you've been a correspondent for a long time, so maybe you can talk a little bit about maybe a recent example where you did a story in a way that you would never have done previously?
Yeah, exactly. I think this moment takes us back to the 80s when our colleague in the CNN created the news scroll underneath the screen during the Iraqi war with a very few words of 15 or 20 words. We can convey the message of a news that did not reach to be a part of the bulletin. So the challenge for us, I think, now each platform has its own viewer, but the challenge for us is not to fail to provide what the followers need to know, but to tell the story that should be told. This is the challenge for us. So I think journalists should be trained in this case to keep holding the traditional ethics of media. And in another case, I can talk about an example here in China, and this is personal experience that I can now say that there are a shifting of viewer manners from Weibo to WeChat, for example, which provide a very long and in-depth stories. So there is a platform that you can get the short story as Twitter and Weibo and other platforms, but at the same time there are also another platform where you can, and the followers, for example, for us as Al Jazeera Beijing Chinese platform on Weibo and WeChat, if I want to compare them with each other, our followers on the Weibo are not shrinking but getting slower to be increased, while our viewer on the WeChat are getting faster developed. So I think, short messages will not be a very big challenge, as there are another platform to provide the in-depth and the longer stories.
So you actually have to think in various tracks for different news for different tracks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as I mentioned, the training issue. What does ARD do in terms of training? What percentage of the training is on, say, traditional news skills and values and ethics, and what percentage is on new technology that people have to learn and master?
It's a very important part of today's training, of course, social media techniques around that. I think I admire, Andrew said that, how much more focus is put on the correspondent, what they used to do. So we do a lot of training with our long-time correspondents, because we need these people. These are the people who give context, who know a story very well. But now we have to bring them also into the new media age. So what does this mean? Well, we have chats with them, live chats on Facebook, on other platforms, really, because the viewers, and I'm going back to this, they need explanations, they need the context, they need the experience of the correspondence, but they need it in a different way, in a different format than it was before. I think what it burns down to is dialogue again. I think dialogue is really the thing that helped us build on this. Dialogue with the correspondent. Dialogue with the politicians. Perhaps some of you know we just had our election campaign in Germany. What did we do? We tried to increase the dialogue with our main politicians. We had all the heads of the main parties running for parliament in Germany, and we put them into an interactive talk with us. And it worked very well. We had really a lot of questions. We have up to 500,000 interactions per politician. So there is a need for that. To pick up on this dialogue is really important. Again, for correspondence as well. As you, Andrew, described, you go out, you are already on Twitter, and you're not sending out messages only, but you're responding to questions. Even your report might be shaped by those questions. I think this is the most important thing, and that's what we put a lot of focus on, trying not only to teach the new colleagues, but also trying to tell professional, experienced correspondents, journalists, how to better deal with this dialogue that might have looked different when they started their career.
If I'm sorry, just one very quick point to that, if I may. We try also to use various social platforms to drive traffic back to our website to give you that bigger picture. I'll just give you one quick example. Our correspondent in Beijing has been to North Korea many times. He went to Pyongyang and he Instagrammed a few pictures from the airport, Pyongyang Airport, International Airport. A huge number of likes on that, of hits on that. So the social media team sat down and said, how can we leverage this? So they got him to go into a middle-class apartment in Pyongyang and just do a photo essay on what does an average North Korean apartment look like, which again, massively popular, but it also drove it back to the real sort of the meaty story, if you like, of what the hell's going on in North Korea and what's Kim doing, etc., and the bigger geopolitical stories. So we do look at ways of driving, by doing this innovative sort of thing on social media, driving it back to the main website.
I just wanted to ask you about training at CGTN. How do you train your correspondents to deal with the new technologies and new ways of doing stories?
Well, the lucky thing is our correspondents are very young, so they are quick and they're easier to be taught, and so we have this training for everybody, not only the correspondents but also the post-production team, because as everybody mentioned, that it is very important to train our correspondent. But in realities, when you really are sent to some breaking news scenes, and it is sort of pretty hard for you to do everything. So we not only train our correspondent, but also we train our cameraman, train even the drivers. So in that case, to make sure that when the reporters are sending something on Twitter, and maybe the cameraman or maybe the drivers, they can take some photos and they can take some short videos, and they're everybody actually here at CGTN, they should be a journalist. They're not just the drivers or something else. And also for the post-production side, if you go to our digital office, you'll find that all the people are sitting together. You know, for example, on the same table, we have the content providers. For example, the writers and the editors are there. And also we have the designers for the web page. And also we have the technicians sitting together with them. So the writers, the editors, the designers, and the technicians, they're in a group. In that case, to make sure that all you want can be published on the website, and the technical support are there. So I think not only for the news report, but also for the whole team, they have to be familiar with. Even though, for example, if you're a writer, you don't have to do how to writing a code, but you have to know that what sort of technologies are possible for your delivery. In that case, you have to, in this time you have to know everything, almost everything. Even if you don't have to do it, but you have to. You have to
be familiar with it at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I'd like to ask people who are also familiar with change, people in the audience, to raise any questions that you have. I hope we have some microphones in the around so that when you have a question, you good. There are microphones on. Please raise your hand. We have a question over here, please.
Valery Marino from Bulgarian National Television. I have two questions. The first one is with regard to how do you counter trolls, people who use your platforms and your contribution in order to make their point? And the second one is regarding Video 360. How do you deal with technical limitations? Not everybody has such a powerful end device to watch them.
Okay, two questions. One, how do you deal with trolls on social media who are just trying to provoke you? And number two, how do you deal with Video 360 and the technical limitations that not everybody has the ability to either do it or to receive it? Who wants to? Maybe why don't you deal with the troll question, since you talked about social media a lot?
Well, as I said, I think the most important thing is for us as broadcasters to stay a relevant voice, to stay really a trusted place where people can go and find out really what is being said and what has been going on through the social media, and to differentiate that perhaps from what really happened. So what we're trying to do is we instituted a little group called Fact Finders. That's what it is called in German, Fact Finders. And this is just a little group, but they are connected through our friends, again, with Eurovision. We don't work all by ourselves, but we try to connect with other public broadcasters who do the same thing, because then we have the expertise from England or from Italy or from Bulgaria in there. And so we try to really look into these stories. Who's behind that? What's happening? Trying to tell people again how to find out about those things. We produced, and I talked about media literacy before, we produced also a little explanatory video again, trying with very easy steps, really 3-4 steps. How can you find out if there is likely a troll or a bot behind this? These are easy things, but it is something that you have to understand yourself, and that you should be teaching your audience, because in these times of so many different channels, of so many different social media outputs, it's very important to differentiate between those who want to lead you into one direction and those who you can trust. So I think it's important to increase media literacy through one way or the other. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get again into a dialogue, really also tell, moderate our dialogue on Facebook, on Twitter, really tell people this is how we see the situation, this is the fact-checking we did on that. So we try to be, again, my answer is to be in a dialogue. This is really what social media is really great, because it has enabled us to do so much more dialogue than we could do before.
Thanks. Dinar, I'll throw the 360 question to you, but let me maybe phrase it a slightly different way. How do you continue to be innovative and do new things without getting too far ahead of the people who are trying to receive it and the technology on the receiving end?
Right. So The first thing is that we have different types of cameras. There are some cameras that we use for breaking news, which are very simple, that you don't need to stitch after that. The quality is not that good, but if it's like a protest or some event happening right now, there is a technology that can deliver like film and deliver 360 right away, and that's fine. Of course, if we have some time to prepare, this is like a feature story or something like that, then of course we use more complicated technology, and then we use some good cameras and stitch afterwards, and we have not a big team, but devoted team of video editors who stitch it in the right way, and then we put it out on the platforms that are friendly with 360, which are YouTube, Facebook, and we also, with Facebook and YouTube, we also try the live streaming in 360. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes not. As I say, there are no clear answers. We are all pioneers in this system, in these technologies, so we just try our best. But yes, I think the answer is just trying to be a step further, trying to do our best, and sometimes it will help, sometimes not, but yes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, in fact, we are a panel about convergence, and we are about to converge with lunchtime. So it's probably time to bring this to a close. I'd like to thank the panel. It's a fascinating subject. I think if I were to put a conclusion to it, I would say that we really don't know what the next big thing will be 10 years from now, 15 years, 20 years from now in news. We do know that it will be very different from what we have today. We do know that it will present new challenges both to correspondents in the field and to people at head office trying to deal with creating new systems and new processes. But at least we also know that some of the constants around ethics, around verification, around truth remain the same. Please join me in thanking a really great panel.
Thank you also very much, David, for your moderation. Thank you. It's about media convergence. I guess it is an interesting conversation. Have views and opinions coming from 5 international broadcasters. Thank you so much. They say the most uninteresting conversation is the kind of conversation in which everybody would agree with one another. But as you may know, and you could tell, that every one of them come with an attitude of innovation and also with some best practices for innovation. While they are preparing the stage, I would also like to brief you not only about convergence within media organizations, but also convergence of ideas and connectivity among countries. As you may know, Belt and Road Initiative originally come from China and now being embraced by many countries has become a great platform of connectivity, not just transportation, not just infrastructure, but also connectivity of information. That's why we have recently the Belt and Road News Alliance, in other words, BRNA Link. And today, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to announce the launch ceremony of the BRNA. It's an international news media association, officially launched on May the 4th, 2017, jointly by CCTV News Content and media institutions of countries and regions along the Belt and Road Initiative. BRNA Link is an internet-based platform independently designed by CCTV Plus, and it provides news sharing and exchange services to all BRNA members. I met some of them during yesterday's dinner, I think. They are very excited about today's launching ceremony. So shall we invite to the stage to help us unveil the new platform, Mr. Jiang Heping, Controller of China Global Television Network, CGTN 总监江和平先生。与此同时，让我们有请 Meanwhile, let's invite Ms. Yan Ni, Director of Asia, Africa, Latin America Division of the International Cooperation Department, State Administration of Press Publication, Radio, Film and Television, and also Mr. Teng Yunping, CEO of China Global Television Network Corporation, and as well, we have the General Director of the International Broadcasting Multimedia Platform of Ukraine, Mr. Ms. Berezovska, as well as Mr. Dino Apollonio, President and CEO of People's Television Network of the Philippines. Please, all of you, come up to the stage and unveil this wonderful idea for all of us. Thank you. 有请。So all we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, on the stage, we are going to count together with our audience here. 5, 3, 4, 2, 1. And then you can put your hand over here, and then the whole thing would begin. All right? So shall we go together? 从5开始啊。5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! VRNA link. Congratulations. The Golden News Alliance. VRNA. 太棒了，谢谢。We want to have a photo of all of you together. Would you like to take a photo together behind this? Okay. 好，有请我们的朋友们。So make sure, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please be seated. Make sure you are going to check our website, brnalink.com, which were shown earlier on our big screen. 好，请各位就坐。那今天上午呢，我们的